Welcome to this episode of Shonen Flop, where we talk about manga series and Shonen Jump that didn't make it big. I'm David.
I'm Jordan.
And this week, we are talking about Level E, and we are joined by our guest, Godswill. Godswill, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be on the episode. Very interesting series that we read.
Woo, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. We talked about in the warm-up like 6 minutes ago. It was awesome that you actually picked a series because it's actually a very rare treat. I guess it's like, yeah, I really want to talk about this. So what, I guess, made you pick Level E?
I was interested in this one because Togashi, I know about Hunter, and YuYu Hakusho, but I didn't know anything about Level E. I've heard about it, like the anime, but never knew anything like what it was about, and might as well got into it.
Me neither. I remember seeing this on like Togashi's Wikipedia page as like something that he did in between YuYu Hakusho and Hunter. But yeah, it's the same thing with you. I was like, man, what's that? I've never heard of that.
This is like the Cool Shock BT of Togashi.
I would say it's significantly better than Cool Shock BT, but yes.
It's like their most lesser known. So for reference, Godswill, are you familiar with Cool Shock BT?
No.
So that is the series Araki did before he did JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh, wow.
And it's about a little kid pulling pranks on people. It's a very strange read. They actually made a sequel of it like a year ago.
Yeah.
Called Old Cool Shock BT, where the kid is now like 80 years old, so he aged instead of Araki.
Oh, is that the
Yeah, that's actually Araki has a drawing of BT that ages for him instead.
Wow.
Oh, it's the picture of Dorian Gray.
Yeah, I'm say.
I would definitely recommend it. It's only 12 chapters and 12 like short chapters. So if you want to just see what Araki did, because it's definitely kind of like a proto-Dio, much like how we'll get into this is kind of like a proto-Hunter x Hunter in a few ways. Godswill, do you mind actually telling the audience still a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, my name is actually Godswill.
Yeah, that's a cool name.
I love it. I didn't like it for a long time, but when I came into college and people started telling me like they like my name, I started loving it.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? High school and below, nah, it wasn't cool. But
high school just makes you feel bad about everything, you know?
Yeah.
Honestly, so I was glad to be out of that. And yeah, college, like I really found like my passion again for like anime. I thought I'd have to grow up.
Nah.
Right? But now, yeah, working in the anime industry, like I used to work at Funimation as a social media coordinator. Now I work at Viz Media as a community manager, social media manager. And on the side, I do a podcast called That's Dope. And we also do parties. We just did a party called the Blanket Fort, where we honestly stayed up until 11 a.m. today.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little dead.
Oh my God.
I really appreciate you being able to record with us today because we've been super excited because especially all the One Piece podcast guys last week we were like, oh, Godswill, fucking awesome ass dude. You're lucky to have him on the show. So
Hey.
I've been really excited about recording with you today.
Thank you.
Joke's on you, Mom. I turned anime into my career.
Yeah.
They still do ask me if I'm going to go to medical, but, at this point, I'm good.
They always do, don't they?
Right? Unfortunately.
Oh my God. Hey, maybe you could have used that medical stuff when talking about all the like biology stuff in the series. So why don't we turn it to actually getting into the series? So Godswill, do you mind just giving the audience a bit of a rundown about the series? I know we talked about the Hunter x Hunter connection, but what else has this author done that they might have heard of?
I mean, YuYu Hakusho is like the big claim to fame, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Hunter x Hunter. So those are huge titles that got me interested in this one. And most anime aficionados have probably seen or heard of at least, right? Yeah, I mean, YuYu Hakusho got all of us into, or at least many of us millennials into anime, right?
Might have just straight up been the best show on Toonami.
Honestly.
Probably the best anime opening of the 90s.
Oh, Smile Bomb. Jesus Christ.
Classic.
You guys can watch my guitar cover of Smile Bomb.
Ooh.
Yeah, Jordan's done a cover of it.
It took a while to practice, but that was fun.
Fun fact, Jordan's entire middle name is legally the entire lyrics to the English cover of Smile Bomb.
I don't know where to go.
Yeah, exactly. Look, my birth certificate's very long.
Oh, man. Wow, your parents are based.
It's the length that Republicans thought Obama's birth certificate should be, actually.
Oh, God. It's like Macaulay Culkin's legal name is Macaulay Culkin. Or I'm probably fucking up his name, the dude from Home Alone.
Yeah, it's Macaulay Culkin.
Whatever. Listen, I'm here to read manga, not read birth certificates. But anyway, do you mind wrapping things up with just kind of what the runtime and the duration of the series was, Godswill?
Yeah, for sure. So it was 3 volumes and then it was 16 chapters. Started in September 19th, 1995 and finished on December 3rd, 1996.
So this is, I think, Jordan, what, the second or third oldest series? Cool Shock BT is clearly the oldest thing we ever read. Is there anything from the 90s we had covered before that you remember off the top of your head?
Ooh, man, I feel like there was something, but I just, I can't think of anything. Like, as we've mentioned many times before, it is very difficult to find translated manga from the 90s that wasn't popular, you know? I mean, just finding translated manga from the 90s itself is surprising, and it has to be something that people care enough about to translate. Thankfully, Level E was, but clearly they did not get the best translators for at least a few of the chapters.
By the way, I was looking up, so we actually have this dude who was like, hey, I made it this giant list of every single series in Shonen Jump that's ever run with offer runtime and stuff, so we just look at that. So Jordan, yes, Level E is the second oldest thing we have ever covered.
Wow.
Third place is Double Arts, so we definitely have a giant 90s gap.
Yeah, big gap right there. Is Biichi not older than Double Arts? I always kind of thought it was.
Biichi wasn't Shonen Jump, so that's why it's not on this list.
Oh, yeah, because I was going to say, I felt like Biichi was like late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, that it wasn't Shonen Jump, which, yeah, so this was, in terms of length, this was kind of the reverse Biichi.
Yeah. All these were double chapters, which I don't understand. It ran in Shonen Jump. Do you have any idea how it had double chapters like this in normal Shonen Jump? Like, do you have any idea if that was a thing in the 90s?
No, actually, I was wondering about that myself. Like, I thought it was pretty odd.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys are explaining that now, actually.
Well, all I could think is that maybe Shonen Jump was just like, well, you just made YuYu Hakusho, so yeah, we'll give you, like, double-length chapters. Like, is that what they did with Sandland? Like, how long was Sandland chapters?
I think they were normal chapters. It was just a mini series.
I feel like they were, right? Yeah. So maybe they were giving him like special rules because, oh, Togashi, you're the golden boy. And to be fair, Togashi is the golden boy. So
it's true.
I understand.
It had to have been monthly, though, because it ran for 16 chapters, but it published for over a year.
I would hope it's monthly. It seems like weekly has destroyed him. So
yeah.
I would hope he got like a monthly kind of break with this one, especially with the detail of some of this art.
Exactly.
For at least a significant portion of this manga, seems like it required a very long time to do.
Yes, I think that why don't we actually tell the audience a little bit about what Level E is as we go into the awesome plot summary that Jordan has written.
Oh yes.
Take us away.
Hundreds of alien species live on Earth, and we have no idea about this. The following is a series of vignettes that take place in that universe. Oji is the prince of the Dogra, appearing in high school baseball player Susui's home, and he pranks both him and his bodyguards by setting up a fake attack from a genocidal alien race called the Duskin, who do not attack humans because they love baseball. Next, a human-devouring alien creature has infiltrated a high school and eats young girls. Four boys witness the alien devouring their classmate and seek help from the mysterious Level E, a subsection of a mental hospital dedicated to investigating aliens. The investigator looks into it and discovers that the aliens are actually the last of their race, and they reproduce through cannibalism. It's complicated, but the sci-fi logic that they actually go into and is very complicated actually does make sense. Like, it's actually kind of impressive the way that he does it.
Yeah.
But the boys all decide to pay back the investigator by joining him to help Level E. But actually, this whole story was a manga written and drawn by Oji from the previous chapter, whose pitch is then rejected by Shonen Jump for being too dark. So...
Oh man, shitting on the Shonen Jump editors. Where have we seen that before? Fucking Red Hood.
This is Proto Red Hood as well as Proto Hunter Hunter. The Popcorn David.
Oji is bored, so he kidnaps 5 kids and turns them into Power Rangers. This is definitely my favorite part of the entire series.
Great part, yeah.
Teleporting them into a knockoff Final Fantasy, one that he made in RPG Maker 95, literally. Oji himself gets trapped into becoming the evil general's wife until the actual Dark Lord appears, revealing that he doesn't want to be evil. This angers Oji, who made him specifically to be evil. The Power Rangers kids immediately turn on Oji and leave the planet, forcing him to fly them home. An alien species named the Magra reproduce when an alien queen mates with one male of a random species, giving birth to millions of daughters and spreading a virus that destroys the race of the father. Alien queen ends up falling in love with a trans man, but since he can't...
Amazing to see in 90s Shonen Jump. Holy shit.
Yeah, she kidnaps him and gives him space HRT and presumably a penis, and they fall in love. Kraft and Oji did some complicated triggering to make it so humanity isn't wiped out, though. Popcorn Godswill.
You remember Baseball Kid from the first chapter? He's back, and this time he's on his way to the baseball championships when his team is teleported to a dream world. This one was kind of confusing, and I'm not sure how they got out of it, but they did. And then the Power Rangers kids rescue a trafficked mermaid who kills you if you tell a lie. Oji's fiance appears and tricks him into marrying her and becoming king. And then finally 10 years pass, and Oji and his wife are held hostage by a rebel group, but trick them into killing themselves. Turns out that it was on Earth, which was fully adapted to the aliens and integrated them into society into a beautiful utopia.
Don't you love a happy ending?
Yeah, you know, this series, it ends in a way that's kind of like hopeful.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, have we seen any manga where it just has like a terrible downer ending because it got canceled?
Red Hood.
Oh, yeah. This is literally the thing I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you are, but that's not why.
Oh, thanks, bud.
No, I love you. But yeah, Red Hood, definitely. I mean, I talked last time about how I would like to see more downer endings in sports manga, but yeah, I can't think of too many others that we've covered.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, Slam Dunk definitely has a downer ending, which...
Oh.
Well, we didn't cover Slam Dunk.
That's true. And it's one of 2 sports manga I've ever read in my entire life. Shout out to iShield 21, the best sports manga for people that don't like sports manga.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's just a good manga.
First, let's go through the characters, because I know, Jordan, you definitely had a lot of love for this series, and I'm really interested to hear what Godswill thinks of it. So I'll start things off with the first character, Tsutsui Yukitaka. So he is an Earthling, he lives alone, he plays baseball. He's kind of the main character for about 5 chapters, and then he disappears. So that's a point for me on the Chibi score, Jordan.
Here's the thing. This is Togashi, and anybody who's read Hunter x Hunter
Yeah.
knows that Gon is the main character for, like, only maybe half the arcs in Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
The way that he did this is so typical of Togashi. Like, I don't mean that as, like, a bad thing at all. I think it really works the way that he does it. I mean, it works amazingly in Hunter x Hunter. Even though Tsutsui is no longer, like, a main character, he's still a character.
Yeah.
It's just that it's like, hey, don't worry about him for now. We'll come back to him later. He's not the focus here.
That's fair. But you know who is definitely the focus of everything?
Oh,
Godswill,
the main character, yes.
Godswill, will you do us the honor of telling us about Prince Oji, aka
Prince Ouija board?
Yeah, for sure. Ouija, yeah. Prince Baka, a.k.a. Prince Oji, alien who at the very beginning breaks into the house of Tsutsui Yukitaka. And throughout the whole series, he acts like a huge asshole, makes a lot fun of a lot of people, including his own staff. He often accidentally says what he's thinking and thinks what he's saying.
That was a great joke when he's trying to deceive him and he accidentally says what he's thinking out loud.
I do like that. He keeps it real.
He does.
He does have cool alien powers like regeneration, like after sleeping for a bit, and blue blood. He's the first prince of the planet Dogra.
What's so interesting about him is that he's not a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a villain, basically. Like,
He kills someone and it's like not a big deal.
that guy faked his death.
But he didn't know that.
He knew that because the whole thing was a trick that he was doing.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, but Kraft and the people around him in Tsutsui did not know that.
Nah, okay.
But, like, at the end of the day, he is somebody that they mention many times. When he gets bored, he just ruins people's lives for fun.
I really love that Power Rangers arc. It was the best fucking...
It's really good.
Especially also the chapters were shorter. So I was like, oh, this is great. And then they got long again. I was like, fuck.
I noticed that. It was like, wait, this one was shorter. What happened here?
Yeah, he's like, let me see if I can do weekly for like a month. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Good.
So, did anyone have anything else they want to say about the Prince?
He feels like a parody of, like, Dream from Sandman, almost.
Yeah.
He's just this weird, super powerful, super intelligent being who just, like, is almost like a mad scientist. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's also a femboy, a Togashi-style femboy like Kurama, like Kurapika. You know, Togashi loves putting in very feminine men, and that is absolutely OG to the point where he disguises himself as a princess.
Mm-hmm.
And straight up, when he first appeared, I was like, they just had a princess here. They just had, like, a pretty girl here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, wait, you're OG. And I'm like, oh, that's OG.
Yeah, Togashi definitely plays a lot with like LGBT stuff. Jordan, do you mind telling us about the most important, I would say, woman in the series? Sorry, human woman in the series. Yeah, my
Okay, there you go.
apologies.
I was like,
She's only there for like a couple chapters. Her name's Edogawa Miho. So yeah, she is Sutsui's neighbor in the first chapter, and she is the daughter of a high-ranking guy. Like the thing is that she doesn't really matter so much. She's just part of one of the little vignettes in this series.
Mm-hmm.
And she and Sutsui have kind of a cute little moment where it seems like they start dating, kind of.
Yeah, it's really sweet. I just like how, as we talked on Chibi, she is a strong female character, which is always nice to see in a Shonen Jump series, and not to be sexualized, which kind of tells you, Godswill, about the quality of some of the series we read. Like Phantom Seer, where it's always showing like a thigh shot of the 16-year-old
Bone Collection.
Fucking Bone Collection. Is it like hard when like you know a series is like just hot garbage, but you still, because of your job, you have to like hype it up?
I mean, yeah, for sure. You know,
You're
can't...
like, yeah, Build King.
Yeah. Luckily, like the company is like, you know, if no one's feeling this, then we're not having to hype it up like, oh, Chainsaw Man equals Build King, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I remember Stephen Paul was talking about, so the creator of My Hero Academia had 2 series that were complete failures, and when My Hero came out, they just didn't have any competence in it, and when it blew up, they were like, oh, shit, so they had to like rush translate it.
I heard like how it caught the industry unawares.
And to be fair, if you told me, hey man, the guy who wrote Bulge of the Warring Planets is writing a new series, I'd be like, oh, I don't really care about that. All right.
Yeah. But speaking of warring planets, why don't we talk about his 3 bodyguards, Sato, Captain Kraft, and Cullen, where for the most part, they're not particularly interesting besides Kraft. He's kind of like hard-blooded like Tetsui, but he can also be cool-headed. I really love how he was like, oh, I'm supposed to fight you guys, but I don't really care. And there's like a listening device, so we'll just pretend to fight. And he's like cooking or doing chores while they're like making fight noises or something.
He's just like typing on his computer and smoking a cigarette. It's great.
Yeah.
It's his day off.
I love Kraft. It's so good because he hates the prince. He thinks the prince is a fucking bad person and a fucking idiot, and he's right on both counts.
Yep.
But he also is a sworn member of like the Dogra military, so he absolutely has to protect the prince and do what's right for him. And I really love how it's just like he has to straddle that line
Every day.
every single day. Like part that David's talking about in the Power Rangers section is that OG's just like, ooh, to get yourselves to stop being Power Rangers and take off the Transformer that I gave you guys, you have to defeat my evil boss minion, Kraft. And Kraft is just like, yo, fuck you, man. I'm gonna help the kids. What the hell? This is stupid.
I really wish there was like a bonus chapter where he just like tries to like quit and like works at a convenience store and he's like so much happier and then he's like forced back in or something.
Yeah, exactly.
The new part-timer is a former alien bodyguard.
I figure it would be like Kraft rejoined and he was like, oh, the pay just wasn't good enough. Fine. Oh, I'll come back.
Or maybe it's about his dating life and it's called Kraft Singles.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
brilliant.
All right, that's the best joke I'm going to make this episode. All right, let's get into the Color Rangers Godswill. Once again, I'm going to give you the best thing to talk about in this series. So please, can you tell us about the Color Rangers?
Yeah, there's some cool kids. I'm surprised that they're supposed to be elementary school kids, though. Like, they all felt older to me, but, you know, like how they kept saying they're elementary school kids, I just had to believe it.
Well, they have that one kid with the mustache.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, hold up, this guy looks like he's like 28, but, you know, okay, elementary school, sure.
I'm going to guess this is like one of the elementary schools that goes up to like 6th or 7th grade, you know?
Gotcha. That would make sense.
And he's just the one that hit puberty first.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the others do look a little smaller, but at the same time, they all have like some charm. They are a gang of idiots for sure. You know, all different types of personalities, and then eventually they take their Color Ranger ability seriously, and they become cool MMO gamers.
Cool gamer guys.
Yeah, and Gon is there.
Yeah, and this is obviously Proto-Greed Island from Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
You know, else is interesting, Jordan, is Princess Saki. So can you tell us about what is actually the most important female character in the series?
She's an alien princess, and this is kind of a direct proto-Chimera Ant arc in many ways, because her thing is that she must mate with a member of a random species in order to give birth to the next generation of her people. But the thing is, like, she has basically an ultra-powerful venereal disease.
Yeah.
And when a male has sex with her, he gets a disease that becomes airborne and renders all males of his species impotent, basically. So
Omega AIDS, I guess.
Oh, I was like, what's a disease we can make fun of that it wouldn't be too over the line? So I appreciate Godswill you thinking of the best joke to make about that.
It's the children of men disease.
Yes.
You know? But yeah, she actually falls in love at first sight with the next character on the list.
Kyoko Mikahasa, who is a human that Saki has fallen in love with, a hopeless romantic, and is a trans man, which is just nothing wrong with that, but you just aren't expecting that from a series that came out in 1994.
Yeah, pretty progressive, yeah.
I was shocked. It also makes sense for Togashi. Togashi puts in a surprising amount of LGBT things into his series.
Or non-binary characters, like with the Chimera.
That is true. Hunter x Hunter, the cat character whose name is, I forget because it's very complicated, uses they, them pronouns, yeah.
I was just saying, Pito, is that the character?
Yes, Pito.
Yeah.
Pito, thank you. Never Pito, yeah.
That made it very hard to watch Hunter x Hunter. I was like, I don't know what the fuck these characters' names are. Because they're all like 4 syllables.
Yeah.
And then of that note, characters, and issues with characters, do you guys feel good about going into why it failed?
Yeah.
So, Godswill, I was trying to think of like a weird like way to compliment you without sounding really mean to me and Jordan. So I'll just say it anyway. So, Godswill, as the most successul person in this chat, can you please tell us two failures, what really you didn't? No, I'm just kidding. Can you please though tell us what did you not like?
Yeah, so I guess like to start it off, I guess it's like more dry than I expected it to be, very wordy. I guess it was like more thick than I expected.
Oh, yeah.
Extra thick.
It was extra thick.
Still a charming series. Like I'm glad I read it, but at the same time, like it did feel more of a slog to get through. You know, if it wasn't for the fact that it's like, okay, it's Togashi, I gotta read it, then, you know, like I don't know if I would have kept with it. And also the fact that it's like, okay, at least it's 16 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad I read it, though.
Also, to be fair, you know, if it was coming out during the time and you were reading it, you wouldn't be on a time limit where you had to read the whole thing in time for a podcast.
Yeah, true.
That is true, yes.
I think I appreciated the time limit for the podcast. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let me get through this. Like, I think maybe if I had like stretched out throughout a year, I'd forget more about the characters. You know, I would forget more about, for example, like the baseball chapter, and I forgot like the main character. To also go through a little bit more points, like the art about it. Yeah, sometimes it's a little weird.
This is some of the most blatant no backgrounds. Like sometimes they'll at least do like a gradient or be lazy. This is just straight white.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think it's stark. I think the way he does it is good, but we'll talk about it in the good part.
I think it was charming sometimes, but yeah, like sometimes it was just sort of hard to see or like to be in the moment, or sometimes there's just straight up no art. It's just walls of text. And sometimes there's lots of walls of text, and I'm like, oh god, let's learn the rules about this game, right?
I mean, that's my boy Togashi. That's what he does. Walls of text.
Yeah, but just because he does that doesn't mean it's good. I really hated the narrator in Chimera Ant.
Yeah.
Except it is, because the narrator in Chimera Ant is actually great and you have bad opinions.
Listen, I'm with Totally Not Mark, even if he says the name of the series wrong. He says Hunter x Hunter, and I was like, dude, really?
I say Hunter x Hunter.
The Chimera Ant arc, yeah.
He asked like a Japanese person how to say gone, but I guess they didn't tell him, oh, by the way, you're saying the name of the series wrong in your episode.
Oh, man, yeah.
So I'm with you. I was on the side of I think the art just had some issues. One thing, it felt like there was kind of an uncanny valley where I feel like some of the art was just tracings. Like he traced people.
It's not. He's just a good artist.
But yeah, and then the walls of text. I also feel like there was kind of a Pucci effect, at least in the first initial chapters, where it's literally like if the prince isn't there, everyone is like, where's the prince? What's the prince up to? Like there was arcs where the prince had nothing to do with, and they're like, he must be involved somehow, that rascal. This is his series. And I get it, but I'm still like, it would have been nice if the characters existed like
outside of his universe, right?
Like that fake fight was awesome because it was them fucking with the prince, and I really wanted to see more of that.
Yes, I can agree with that.
And it's also, it just kind of completely abandoned the original premise in the first 5 chapters to do a much better arc, but still when you're 16 chapters, it's kind of weird that the series just really didn't have a consistent idea about what the point of the series was, and I'll definitely go into what I would have done different to have added kind of a skeleton to the series to make it a lot, I would say, more understandable while reading the whole thing as a cohesive package.
So it's funny because remember a while ago I was talking about crazy genre shifts that happen in manga? But who I always think of when I say that is YuYu Hakusho. How YuYu Hakusho starts out, and it seems like it's just gonna be about this this dude as a ghost just like solving crimes. And then it always felt like Togashi was just like, this isn't working. And then he just changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
Didn't they like not even adapt the first like 30 chapters of the manga when they did the anime?
They skipped a bunch of the chapters.
Yeah, there's one where he's like a boxing coach as a ghost.
There are a bunch of chapters of early Yu Yu Hakusho where it does feel like Togashi's just kind of spinning his wheels, trying to come up with stuff to do with Yusuke, and then he's just like, I'm just going to make it a fighting manga. All right.
I mean, it worked out. It was a great series.
Yeah.
It worked. No, yeah.
And speaking of things that worked, do you guys want to go into what it did well?
Oh, yeah.
Jordan, though, as definitely the biggest cheerleader of this series, what are the things that really stood out to you as positives about Level E?
I don't know what you guys are talking about because this is like some of the best art I've ever seen in manga. His line work is incredible. The shading is like sometimes just so impeccable. What's very interesting is that he's doing some kind of, it almost feels like Junji Ito style here, like where it's realistic in a way that is horror, which is interesting because the series is not really horror, but it often leans on horror. It's like a horror comedy thing. That first chapter before the twist comes up where they reveal it's all a joke, it's scary.
Yeah.
Like this evil alien race that they build up as these monstrous genocidal fighters just like start following the main characters and they break through the wall. There was a really good joke where the alien punches through the wall and he's like, oh, you can get that fixed. But
This is a fucking gate.
they just put like a saloon style gate over it. And Sutsui just pushes through it into Miho's room. He's like, hey, what's up? It's really good.
I also appreciate the humor is much more like situational. It's not just like puns, which I feel like Japan is like a language design where puns are super easy. So I appreciate it was a lot. I mean, the cost of it was there was a lot of text because he had to kind of set up the jokes in a particular way, but I think the jokes were worth the long setups.
Some of the payoffs were very good.
Yeah.
I really liked, like, for instance, with the evil general, OG did a bad job programming all these characters. So the general is like, we're gonna get married. And he's reading a book on sex because he doesn't understand how it works.
Yeah. And like 3 times.
And like 3 times he goes to OG and he's like, princess, are you into normal stuff? And he's like, no. So then he goes back and reads another chapter.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you like toys? And the prince is like, no. And then he's reading a book about regret.
I mean, that entire arc, I would have read a manga that was just that like 6 chapter block.
It was amazing.
We'll talk about my final opinion. That block was 100% not a flop if that was the quality of the entire series.
Yeah.
So, Godswill, though, what were some positives that you saw in the series?
I have to agree. I think it was funny and charming. Like it was a fun time like reading this, and I like I said, I was glad I actually read it, even though like I did complain that it was a slog at times. And I do have to agree, like the art is unique, you know, like Uncanny Valley, but like it was something that stood out, and at times like it leaned into like the horror element, like Junji Ito. So I think it was pretty good, and yeah, like lots of cool ideas that like lead into future ideas for future titles, right? So really cool to see the prototypes of that happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys brought up a lot of great stuff already.
That's really hits the nail, and that was the next thing I was going to say. This series is really cool to read because it's literally seeing him experiment with ideas that evolved into Hunter x Hunter, and it's actually fun to read those ideas. It's not like Beachy, you know, where it was a ton of really stupid fucking ideas. Godswill, if you're not familiar, Beachy was the first series by the creator of Soul Eater and Fire Force. And that has a lot of dog shit ideas. Our guest actually on that episode didn't fully read the series, but he was able to fake it.
We did not notice.
He read 1 in 4 chapters, and that was a monthly series. And we couldn't tell because of how redundant and just garbage. So this is how you do it. While we're on the topic, though, where that could have gone, why don't we go into where this manga could have gone? So my idea for like a skeleton framework, as I talked about in the issues I had, I think it really would have been cool if they had kept the humans and turned this into kind of Men in Black, like people talked about in comparison. But it would have been cool if they were brought in and that they deal with all of the aliens. We have reoccurring characters, and I really liked the world building he did. But he has all these interesting alien ideas, but only in like the 4th chapter do you see like multiple alien species really interacting that aren't the main aliens. And I think that would have been cool because he was putting in the effort to fully think about these series. He just kind of was throwing away ideas because this was just him getting ideas out before he made Hunter x Hunter. I totally understand. But again, it also made it that a lot of times it was hard not to feel like my time was being wasted while I was reading part because I was like, this character doesn't matter. This doesn't matter at all. Oh, this character came back, even though, you know, it was supposed to be the main protagonist, not showing up for 70% of the series is a little bit weird. I know Jordan's gonna say, but that's just how he writes. I get it. Doesn't mean it's a good thing at all, always.
I feel like you're expecting this series to have one type of structure when it's doing a completely different kind of structure. It's not even like this is how he writes. I just feel like it's like watching Doctor Who from series to series and being like, wait, why the fuck isn't Rose here? What the hell?
Yeah, but that's like Rose is appearing like on episode 4 of a 12-episode series.
Maybe that's not the example, but it's like, why, when he goes to like this time period, why doesn't that guy show up again? And it's like, well, he's not in that time period anymore.
Doctor Who still had that where they had reoccurring characters and things mingling. Like, that's what I wanted was...
And so does Lively.
I feel like it was more like the ideas kind of got dropped, but we can bicker about that kind of thing forever. Yeah. To be honest, I just am not a big fan of anthology series. I know this isn't an anthology, but I would consider it like a soft anthology.
It definitely felt like one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't, but it does feel like that. Especially the second story.
Yeah.
I just straight up thought they were pulling like a Halloween 3. OG Myers isn't in this one.
Got him. But Godswill, how about you? What would you have said you would have changed about this series?
I love that idea about like the Men in Black. That was brilliant to me. Yeah, I do wish that like it was like a coherent story, or like with like the main character going through crazy hijinks, or if maybe different humans. Like if it could have followed the different humans. Like I think like the mix up of aliens that was eating people, that was like a weird bit to like sort of go to.
Yeah,
it would have been cool like if that
came back.
Yeah, like the Power Rangers came back, and that was cool.
Yeah, Power Rangers did. Yeah, because he mentions in there that like, this is a real alien race, by the way. And it was like, well, I would kind of like to see the real life version of the quote unquote real life version of this in that world, And I also will say, I should have brought this up during what it did poorly. Some of the chapters, I don't really think he cared about the resolution that much.
Yeah, it just ended, or like he's just like, oh, never mind, scrap this.
I legitimately don't know how that baseball arc ended.
He loves his anticlimax.
That's a great point.
Gets very surreal sometimes, and sometimes he gets so surreal that, like he loses the actual kind of plot threads.
I mean, he straight up had characters drawn as cubism, which was pretty rad. And actually, I would have liked to have seen more of that. The Teenage Renaissance David inspired.
Yeah, there were some moments in this, like the moment where I first thought this was actually when Kraft is like, oh, well, maybe if I hit him hard enough again, he will regain his memory. So then they just show him doing, like, transforming into different forms of like Japanese warriors and stuff and beating the shit out of him. And I just thought, man, this is the kind of humor that I wanted from Teenage Renaissance David. It isn't the same jokes, but it's like the style of humor,
But I think we're getting a lot off track. So do you guys have any other things you would have done differently in the series, or should we keep this train of miscellaneous thoughts going into that section?
I'm good to move on. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm good, yeah.
So, Jordan, as you were already starting into, what are your miscellaneous thoughts? I don't know why I said it like that. I just felt like...
There's a Nen system in this
Yes, they
series.
say Nen.
I love that.
Say Nen.
I was like, oh my God, just like Hunter.
I saw that. I lost my shit. Like, oh my God. Because he's talking to the Power Ranger and he's like, you just have to manipulate your Nen. And he's going into all these like overcomplicated descriptions. Like, it felt like Togashi was almost making fun of his own tendency.
Before it even came out.
He was making fun of the Nen system before he said what it was in Hunter x Hunter. It's amazing.
By the way, are you guys of the opinion Nen was thought of before the series started or no?
I think before.
I think he thought of it before he started it. I think that what he did was he decided, Nen is way too complicated to start Hunter x Hunter off with. And if I start this series off explaining an overly complicated system in the first arc like Build King tried to do later, it will completely drag everything down. So why don't I just start by getting you into the characters, and then I'll add that later. And that worked out a lot better than what a lot of other series did.
Yeah.
We have actual evidence right here that he was at least thinking of some kind of system called Nen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of the series, was him trying ideas. And then, like, that's the big twist we talked about. He blatantly getting some of that philosophy for the Chimera Ant arc when he has just a character talk for half a page saying how humans are destroying the planet and why humans suck, which was the entire plot of the Chimera Ant arc.
There are at least 3 storylines here that feel like dry runs for the Chimera Ant arc.
Yeah.
The alien princess Saki, they show her mother, the queen, and she just looks like almost exactly like the Chimera Ant queen from Chimera Ant arc. And the premise is the same, where it's like, oh, they mate with other creatures and like take on their genetics, which is the whole thrust of the Chimera Ant arc. And then you have Power Rangers arc, where it's like these artificial beings gaining some form of self-awareness, which is also the whole point of the Chimera Ant arc. It's really interesting to see these these proto Hunter x Hunter elements. And actually, I was curious, do you guys think that this is like a prequel? Because the end of Level E, that world resembles the world of Hunter x Hunter.
I mean, the real world also resembles the world of Hunter x Hunter. Say they're in Japan. And Japan has a different name in the Hunter x Hunter universe.
Spoilers, the world of Hunter x Hunter does not actually in real life resemble Earth. It technically is not, but it really feels like it.
Except for the fact that it's not. It definitely is.
I mean, isn't that true, though?
No, I get what you mean. By the way, something completely unrelated to everything. Did you guys notice every single panel in this manga was square?
I didn't notice that until you said it.
No.
He was actually not very experimental with the actual composition of the page, which I thought was just interesting for a series that's this experimental.
Yeah, maybe that was a good thing because, like, there were so many other very experimental aspects to it. Maybe it's like that kind of grounded it in a sense, or at the very least, maybe that enabled him to focus on other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now that you mention it, it seems like that might have been a conscious decision.
Yeah. I wonder if it was also a limitation of the time, because, like, I'm assuming with computers, it's a lot easier to do things like imposing panels or rotation. Not that you couldn't do that before, but I would be curious if that was something that in the mid 2000s and forward, you see people being more experimental with layout.
Yeah, like a lot of those stark white backgrounds, I think in a more modern series would be gray tone.
Yeah, he would have done something with it.
Yeah. I think that a lot of the times those were deliberate decisions because there are a lot of moments in this series where the backgrounds are incredibly detailed and just like really well-drawn architecture and walls and stuff. Like when they go to the Duskins household in like the first story arc kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, and then that's really all the miscellaneous thoughts I had. The one thing also is I really hated some of the fonts they used in the translation, but I can't blame the series for that. I was like, I don't know what this is saying.
Yeah, like they did a thing where they had like a wall of text.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Did you guys read that?
I did.
I tried.
Well, I read one of them. There was another one that was clearly overcomplicated as a joke that I just skipped. Like, where they go into the details of the Power Rangers' powers, and I was just like, okay, the joke is that this is overcomplicated.
Yeah. But Godswill, by the way, was there any other miscellaneous thoughts you had?
Yeah, sometimes it felt like a horror manga to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting detail, especially like that one where the kidnappings were happening, you know, as it was changing ideas a lot. Like it felt like it was changing genres quite a bit. I like the ending too. Like the ending of it being like optimistic, like we coexist with aliens. That's hopeful. Like I always have the fear that like humans are just gonna be annihilated or like really like go through it with aliens when it happens. Yeah. And also I liked the sort of diversity of like alien species that came. We saw a mermaid, we saw bug species, we saw other humanoids. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like even like the first species that really likes baseball. I thought that was pretty funny.
That was such a good thing. Like the whole chapter, they're like, oh, these evil aliens. I wonder why they don't attack humans. Like there's something about humans that they don't like. Maybe they fear them or something. And it turns out that they just really like baseball and they don't want to destroy Earth because that's where the baseball is.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is actually a prequel to Nine Balls Dragon Parade.
I thought that. Yeah.
Oh, God, that was a serious. Oh, by the way, one completely last thought just inspired this conversation. I feel actually this would have been the perfect series for Jordan Peele to make a adaptation of because it's like the perfect horror comedy. And I feel like he would be the guy who would know how to make a movie out of this series.
Yeah.
He did Twilight Zone, so he likes anthologies.
I would absolutely show this manga to Jordan Peele. Even if he wouldn't do an adaptation of it, he would absolutely like this. Because this is a great series that, I mean, oh man, I just totally spoiled my opinion on it as I've been doing this entire recording.
We're literally 2 minutes away from that, so I think it'll be
Yeah.
I was going to say, definitely Jordan Peele. I think number 2 director I'd have on the show. Number 1 being, I think, James Gunn.
Oh, man.
My pick to have as a director on Shonen Flop.
I thought you were going to say Taika Waititi, who I would also have on the show.
He'd be great. No, I think James Gunn would be the best suited for the format of the show.
Okay, yeah.
We've also already had the funniest man in New Zealand when we had Tim Batt on the show.
That is true. Yeah. Last miscellaneous thought. I appreciated the translator. So there were a lot of references to like little Japanese things and little Japanese musicians that we wouldn't know. So the translator was just like, I'm just going to swap it with MC Hammer and Neil Diamond and stuff because Americans, that's more or less the Japanese equivalent of what's happening here. So like there's one thing where the Power Rangers characters, in order to activate his superpower, has to recite the entirety of the lyrics to Can't Touch This by MC Hammer.
That could have been it, because like Hunter x Hunter actually has a lot of music references like Deep Purple. That's not just Araki who does that.
Well, no, there is a translator's note.
Oh, does it? Oh, I must have missed that then.
Yeah, the translator says, okay, look, it wasn't MC Hammer in the original. It was actually a reference to a 90s Japanese jingle, but this is more or less the equivalent of that. Because you guys aren't going to know what the fuck I'm talking about if I just write that there.
But you know what I do know what I'm talking about is my final thoughts on the series. So why don't we move to the final verdict? So let's start things off with a 6-word summary. We had 4 this week. So first of all, we got Scott. Level E, great ideas, but an uneven execution. T. Wolfwood, level E, Togashi's long forgotten manga. Maxi B, level E, deliberately short, rare trait. I appreciate Maxi B for having someone whose name rhymes with the name of the series. So
Maxi B, level E.
Yep. And then finally from Tucker, who is listening in right now, who actually gave me a list of 5. So I picked the one I like the most, Tucker. So if you disagree with what your favorite is, I'm sorry that I have trash taste. So he said, alien invasion annoys and inconveniences mankind. And then
it's true.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I picked it. So see, Tucker, you got a laugh out of Jordan. So at least I picked one of your better ones.
Tucker only makes bangers, but yeah.
Dude, yeah. Godswill, this dude, Tucker, fucking Chad at it, making 6-word summaries. We gave him his own category for best Tucker 6-word summary when we did our best of the year awards.
Oh, yeah. That's dope.
But speaking of people who make great 6-word summaries, Godswill, do you mind telling us what yours was?
Yeah, for sure. I said A Legend's Forgotten Funny Middle Child.
I really like it.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, that's, again, accurate. Yeah.
And then how about you, Jordan?
My 6-word summary is, what if Sandman was a dick?
Nice. All right. And then I had 2. One was just because I recycled a joke I made in the chibi, so I felt that's not fair, where I said rated E, but not for everyone. And then my actual one is, what if Araki made YuYu Hakusho?
Yeah.
Because let's be real, this is like, if someone told me Araki had written this, I probably would have taken him at face value and believed it.
It's crazy enough.
Yeah. I hope they're friends.
I hope so too.
All right, but we might not be friends after this, because let's go into flop or not. So Godswill, was this a flop or not?
I would say it's almost a flop. Like, I wouldn't like tell people, like especially people who are just getting into manga, to read it. But I think people like who are fans of Togashi's works should read it, especially like if they have like a little bit more awareness of different genres. If they're not going into expecting great battle manga, then I think you can enjoy this.
That's fair. How about you, Jordan?
This is not a flop for me. No, this series is awesome. I loved this series. I think that, like, my biggest issues with the series involved the fact that I had, like, 3 hours to read it, basically. I didn't realize it was going to be that long. If I was aware of the length and had paced it out evenly, like, I wouldn't have even really had that as a problem. I really enjoyed, like, so much of this series. You know, it definitely wasn't perfect, but, like, man, it was so interesting to read. It was successful in a lot of places, raised some very interesting questions, and I thought was very funny a lot of the time. So no, this was not a flop at all for me, dog.
So then, Jordan, since you like the series, did you like this more than Cop and Dolphin? I think that's your current favorite.
Yes.
Damn. So we have a new winner for Jordan for his favorite series of all time, which makes it really awkward that I think this series was a flop. I actually consider this series painful to read at times.
Yeah, honestly, I have to agree with that. Like, I was like, man, just got to get through this.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I want to say the Power Rangers parody, that would have been a close contender for best thing I've ever read. So it's kind of like a Robot Laser Beam, where Robot Laser Beam was good until it got super racist and super bad after the time skip.
It's more like, you remember in Monster Tamer Girls how there was just that one really good chapter, and then like the entire rest of the series was like pretty fucking boring and unmemorable?
Yeah.
Except this series has significantly higher highs than Monster Tamer Girls.
Oh, yeah. Like, this definitely would have been a top 3 series if it was just that. And it's also not a coincidence those chapters were only like 25 pages.
Yeah.
These were a lot of text for 45-page chapters, and that just made the problem a lot worse.
Sometimes you gotta rein Togashi in, all right?
Yeah, but I would say it's definitely not the worst thing we've ever read. But yeah, I think instead of reading this, just fucking read or watch Hunter x Hunter, man. This is all you need. You don't need to read the series if you watch that, because it's all of his best ideas from this series.
And then if you really like Hunter x Hunter and want to read more, yeah, absolutely check Level E out.
I can agree. I thought you were going to say YuYu Hakusho.
I just assume at this point you've seen YuYu Hakusho.
That's fair. Oh, I have to show that to Rachel.
Oh, yeah. YuYu Hakusho owns.
We're watching Ranking of Kings right now.
That's my favorite show this year.
I actually messaged my friend who is deaf right before this, and I'm curious what his thoughts are on the sign language. So if you guys want to know, I'm happy to post in the chat what he actually says about it. Yeah, shout out to you, Scott, who I just realized wouldn't be able to. Well, we have transcripts now, actually. So that was actually one of the big inspirations because he wanted to check our show out. So shout out again to our transcription team so that he actually can enjoy the show.
Yeah, transcripts. You add a significant amount of accessibility to our show for listeners who otherwise would physically not be able to experience it. So thank you so much.
Exactly. But yeah, so though, I guess let's go to shout outs where we can really hear what Godswill's really been doing with his time when he's not being on Shonen Flop. Godswill, though, so really thank you so much. This has been absolutely a pleasure. You lived up to every bit of the hype we heard from the Shonen. Or, sorry. Every single bit we heard from the Shonen Flop. No, every little bit we heard from the One Piece team. Shout out to them, by the way. That was a lot of fun to be on, too. On that note, we're going to have Zach on a future episode where we found a legal manga that he's going to be on since he has a law degree that we've been saving. But yeah, so Godswill, though, can you really tell us everything about what's been going on in your world and where they can find you?
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Godswill Ugwa Jr. That is my handle. Hard to spell, but usually I'm the black guy with the dreads. You'll see I have like a green profile like on all my channels, so Instagram, Twitter, Facebook even. Yeah, like what I do on the side is I work at Viz Media and I do a podcast of my own called That's Dope, where we sometimes talk about anime, we talk about current events. It's pretty funny, pretty explicit, but yeah, it's pretty fun. And I also do parties. I just finished doing this blanket fort party and I plan to do a lot more actually throughout the US, like in Dallas and in LA. We just did,
nice.
Before Corona, we did a Cowboy Bebop themed jazz party. So
Whoa.
Yeah. And I have a lot more interesting ideas to come out. So that's a group called That's Dope Entertainment. So yeah, stay on the lookout for that.
That's really cool.
David is the reason that we canonically know that Spike is Jewish.
I live in New York City, by the way, so I'd absolutely love to go if you do one in the state. So I was in New York Comic Con. I actually met the writer of Cowboy Bebop, and I talked to him about kind of the Ashkenazi background and why he picked it. And he was like, yeah, it just seemed like a really cool aesthetic and like so-and-so. And he was like, yeah, like, I just made him Jewish because, why not? So yes, iconically, no. Before I like ask my question, I just go to the translator. I was like, I'm sorry that you have to translate this. And she was like, it's fine. I've had people ask him worse questions at these things.
Of course. It's Cowboy Bebop. Of course she has.
That was super awesome. But yeah, I actually am looking at it right now. My son, Cowboy Bebop, the movie poster where he and I forget her name. She recently passed away. She did something with the scripts as well.
Oh, I remember seeing that.
But yeah, so that's really awesome. I definitely want to check all that things out. So thank you again, though, for being on the show. I also want to give props to Jordan for making the opening and ending theme, being a great co-host, and helping with the editing as well.
Oh, you're very welcome, David.
I also want to give props to Merliel for the awesome cover art. You can find her online at Lyle Mer, and Nigel for being our generous art benefactor. Want to know, we actually had a Discord poll where it was between the mocking SpongeBob meme and the E-meme. It won by 1 vote, so fuck you, Jordan, because that was his idea, but I still think the mocking SpongeBob meme was better.
Oh, wait, I won. Yeah, hell yeah. I misunderstood. Yeah.
I had to explain to our artist what the meme was, so we'll see how that ends up. And I also want to give props to Tucker for assistance with pronunciation, translation, other miscellaneous research. Thanks to Luke for being our community producer. Check out his awesome Simpsons One Piece mashup series called Domance Dawn on his site, lukehair.com. Thank you to T-Root, Ozzy Rat, T. Wolfwood for bringing our awesome transcription volunteers. The new site is out. You can find their transcripts on Applicable. They do a great job. I love them all. And Jordan, is there anything you want to say?
Thank you so much, David, for the editing you do and just kind of the structuring of the podcast. You do a lot of stuff.
See, I told you we'd get you out before 10:30, man.
Appreciation. Yeah, I appreciate it.
And then just some final notes. You can find us on Twitter at Shonen Flopcast and our website, shonenflop.com. We're also on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever else you get your podcasts. On that note, Spotify now has podcast reviews. Been enjoying the show. Appreciate if you took the 10 seconds to give us 5 stars. If you already have, you are the best. And as we mentioned, the Discord is pretty rad. Come hang with us, talk about anime, games, or whatever else is on your mind. People are wondering, is it for patrons? The answer is no. We have 1 patron channel. Everyone else, totally welcome. We have like 300 people in here. It's pretty freaking rad. Gods will appreciate you joining our Discord as you are a professional. I'm sure you're like, they don't know what they're doing.
Nah, you guys are killing it.
Oh, that's so sweet of you.
Thank you, Senpai.
Someone was like, you guys don't have a porn channel on your Discord. This is amazing.
The bar.
That's the wall we had to circumvent. Was we don't have a dedicated porn channel on our Discord.
Which you have no idea how rare that is.
Yeah, I would say people invite me for like their show, and then I have to meet like their 2 or 3 porn channels, and I'm like, this is weird. Why do you have a porn channel? But yeah, but though on the note of Patreon, if you would like to help our podcast keep going and be able to grow and do bigger and better things, consider subscribing. Have a ton of awesome perks like bonus episodes on Magu-Chan, Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer, and PPPPP, which Jordan has not been canceled yet. It'll be sad when we have to change this copy editing, but somehow it's not in the U19 club.
Yes.
And you could even be sitting in on us while we record this episode. So shout out to our patrons who are listening right now while we record this. You can find it at patreon.com/shonenflop. And I also want to give a shout out to some patrons in particular. So I want to give a shout out to our 2 Chainsaw Man patrons, Pterodactyl Ghost, T. Wolfwood, who wrote something really long, and we're trying to make this a short one. I'm not reading that. Then we have King of the Forest, Albie, Cameron H, another long name I'm not reading, Gabe Lando, Kylie Denton, Mark, M. Solovich, Marty, Rachel, my lovely girlfriend, Scarlett Myrmidon, T, the BBB King, BBB the, and that's everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody. You guys are great.
Nice.
And then I also want to give a shout out to the Last Comic Book Shop. Super awesome comic podcast. They gave us a shout out, least I could do. And you can find them at twitter.com/lastcomicshop. So though, all that's left to do now is the sign off. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next Monday as we give our first thoughts on a series about quick passion. This has been David.
This has been Jordan.
This has been Godswill.
And you've been listening to Shonen Flop.
Keep on flopping, floppers.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Yay.
Bye!
Bye.